I've got a question for you. How much can a piece of cloth tell us about a person? Whether conscious or not, the clothes we wear communicate who we are and form a sort of visual language understood by the groups, communities, and/or societies that wear them. So, what happens when that piece of cloth comes from one of the greatest African kingdoms? What can it tell us about the past, about power? Well, to answer that, today I'm taking you to the Democratic Republic of Congo and talking about a textile that's fascinated artistic greats, historians, and mathematicians alike. Before anything else, let's rewind a bit. Okay. A lot. It's the 17th century, and in a relatively isolated area in the central southern part of the Congo Basin lies a kingdom, a prosperous one at that. Nestled in fertile land and bordered by 3 rivers, the Kuba Kingdom, also known as the Kingdom of the Bakuba or Bushongo, is bustling with creativity, beauty, and most of all, wealth. The ivory trade has made this Bantu state incredibly rich, and it shows. See, sometime around 1625, an outsider called Chiamambul the Great unified the area's chiefdoms under his leadership and ushered in an era of prosperity and stability. So, rather than one big singular group, the Kuba Kingdom is a federation of 19 smaller ethnic groups. In fact, the term Kuba is an overall name given to them by others, notably their southern neighbors, the Luba. Several things link these groups together, though. They are almost all matrilineal societies, they share a common history and language, and they all answer to the king, the Nyim. Matter of fact, the Kuba don't call themselves Kuba, but rather people of the king and children of Wut. Wut being the first human and bringer of civilization. But more importantly, amongst all of these groups, textiles play a crucial role, both culturally and economically. You see, textiles are a tangible expression of power, and so need to scream and be heard from a distance. The intricacy with which a person's possessions are decorated reflect their status and social class, which is why royal ceremonies broadcast their exquisite patterns to all. The more elaborate, the more prestige. The more intricate, the more noble. The more complex, the more desirable. The more, well, you get the gist. No textile is just a piece of cloth. In fact, textiles play such an important role within Kuba society that they can be used as compensation in legal settlements, marriage contracts, burial gifts, and remain a form of currency well into the mid-19th century. Design was and is foundational to Kuba society. The Kuba don't even have a word for art, but they sure do have one for design. A fun anecdote is an account by American missionary Conway Wharton. While on mission in the Kuba region of Kasai in the 1920s, he set up a special motorcycle viewing for the king. Motorcycles were an unknown in the region, so he thought this was sure to be a big event. So there he is, gearing up the motorcycle, all excited, and as it shoots off into the road, he looks back to gauge the expressions of the royal court, expecting to see, wonder for what has just been a display of technological power, but the eyes of the court aren't on the motorcycle. No, much to Wharton's surprise, all eyes are on the pattern that's been left in the sandy road by the motorcycle tires. Yeah, and that pattern was then copied by royal sculptors and is now known by the name of the Nyim, or king, who first saw it. The Kuba Kingdom and its textile art were inextricably linked, which is why the term Kuba now also designates a variety of textiles. Textiles which, it should be said, have been a hot commodity ever since they were discovered and exported by the first Western travelers. Not only did they influence 20th century greats like Picasso and Matisse, who, by the way, kept a collection on display in his studio, they've also attracted analysis from mathematicians. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The skill behind the Kuba textile is one that spans centuries. I mean, they were developed around the same time as the kingdom, so really, Kuba textiles have been handcrafted by the Kuba people for about 400 years and are among the most complex textiles made by human hands. Yup, design amongst the Kuba has been developed to such an exceptional degree that of the 17 ways a design can be repetitively varied on a surface, the Kuba have exploited 12. Some Kuba patterns can even serve as a starting point for the study of geometry. According to mathematician Paulus Gerdes, by repeating certain patterns found in the Ngongo and the Bushong groups, one can discover and prove the theorem of Pythagoras. But more than that, Kuba textiles are a medium of cultural and spiritual communication. Almost all of the approximately 200 geometric patterns have a history and meaning. They constitute a visually symbolic language that holds weight amongst the Kuba. Everything from designs, symbols, colors, and even use of contrasts has significance. The most recurring basic pattern, however, is the wood. Remember how I said that the Kuba called themselves the children of wood? Well, wood or wuto is a central figure in Kuba mythology and serves as a common unifying thread amongst all groups. Another common pattern is that of interlocking hooks, which symbol the act of a mother embracing her child. Unfortunately, however, many of the meanings behind the designs have been lost due to centuries of Belgian colonialism, violent post-colonial conflicts, destructive neo-colonialism, and ongoing socio-economic instability. Nevertheless, Kuba textiles are still in production today and highly sought after. See, all Kuba textiles are made of raffia fiber and hand-woven through quite a time-consuming process that involves both men and women. The creation of a kasai velvet, for example, takes months, and that's because unlike most other natural textile fibers, i.e. wool or cotton, raffia can't be spun into a thread. It must be softened before weaving, which is done by splitting, combing, and smoothing the leaves. But even once woven, the cloth must be dampened in water, netted, and beaten, otherwise it's too rough to the touch. And once that's done, it must be put in a trowel and beaten again using a wooden pile, otherwise it's not supple enough. Only then can the cloth be dyed, and we haven't even gotten to the embroidery yet. To create the geometric patterns all Kuba textiles are known for, the Kuba use 4 simple tools: a needle to sew, a knife to cut and or brush the raffia pile, and, well, their hands. Embroidery is traditionally done by women and, as I mentioned, requires a lot of time and a lot of creativity. Most Kuba textiles are improvised. If you really observe a Showa panel or a kasai velvet, you'll notice that they begin one way and end another. Yeah, most Kuba textiles are the product of spontaneity. They continuously disrupt the expected line. Their creative improvisation has given way to vibrant emotional expression, and it's truly a beautiful thing to watch. And that's before you even get into the textural contrast between different stitches, which is one of the key features of Kuba aesthetics. Honestly, it's quite amazing to me how the Kuba managed to take a sort of leathery leaf and turn it into a cloth with such a velvety feel that some now call it a kasai velvet. And it's even wilder to think that despite it being one of the most developed forms of African art, its origins have remained in relative obscurity. If you're not privy to the world of art or from the region, you've probably never heard of it. I bet you've seen it though, because Kuba design has been extensively copied and commodified, and the names of the artisans who created them have sadly been lost to time. But that's not to say that all have disappeared. The Kuba have managed to preserve their culture in the face of instability, and really, because Kuba textiles have always been a part of Kuba's oral culture, a collective form of visual storytelling, if you will, I don't think they will ever go away. Artists in DRC's Kasai province still produce Kuba textiles and continue infusing them with the stories, creativity, and ingenuity of their ancestors. In many African cultures, traditional handmade textiles not only serve a variety of functions, but can also communicate through time. They can record the memories of a village, speak to the spiritual realm, and sing the stories of ancestors. So just think of the cultural exchange that could happen within borderless Africa. To be able to move freely within the continent and be in the presence of or learn from such historic wealth could do wonders for Africa and Africans. Ultimately, Kuba textiles make up a part of a cultural universe that demands to be seen and, in this case, talked about. This work was made possible through the support of Africa No Filter. Thanks for watching, and until next time.